Welcome to the Property Couch, where each week you get to listen to two of Australia's leading experts. Bryce Holdaway, co-host of Location Australia on Foxtel's Lifestyle Channel, co-host of Escape from the City on the ABC, and partner of Empower Wealth Advisory. Ben Kingsley, chair of Property Investors Council of Australia and the founder of Empower Wealth Advisory, named the 2018 and 2019 Property Advisory Firm of the Year. Stay tuned as they bring you the insider's guide to property, finance and money management.
All right, folks, welcome to the Property Couch. And Ben, happy Christmas, Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas, mate. How are you?
Pretty good. Hey, I'm enjoying doing this summer series.
Love it, mate. Always love learning from people who are out there in the field practicing what they
We put the call out, Ben. The theme of the summer series is really, you say each and every year, you've said it for a long time, knowledge is empowering, but only if you...
Yep, act on it.
Act on it. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to make the summer series chat to the people who are acting on it, Ben, to form some form of inspiration. And today's guest is no different. We have got Joey DeGata. So his story is awesome. I cannot wait to get into it. So let's cut to the interview that we did recently with Joey DeGata. All right, today, Ben, we've got a very special guest, and this is an exciting long-term listener who I think has got a really, really exciting property story to unpack. But first of all, let's welcome our guest to the Property Couch. Welcome, Joey DeGata. Hello, how are you?
How are you guys? Thanks so much for having me on.
That's a pleasure. Hey, I think we've got a fair bit to unpack with your story in terms of the property journey you've been on. But for the benefit of the listeners, let's get to know you, Joey. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and with a focus on what money was like growing up in your household.
Yep. So Joey, I'm 26 and I live in Sydney. Growing up, money was never really spoken about in the household. It wasn't really a subject that my old man might like to bring up. He'd just look after things. We never really went without, but we didn't really have a lavish childhood. But yeah, we went to good schools, and we're never really short of getting anything. But
Mum was traditional at home.
Yeah, and went up until I was about 6 or 7, and then she was a teacher, so she went back to teaching once I started school.
Yep.
But again, cooked absolutely every meal and still does to this day. God bless her.
So still at home.
We'll get to that a little bit. Yeah, a little bit of yes, a little bit of no.
My sister married an Italian. I'm very jealous of some of those wonderful feasts that you're, I'm sure, privy to. But hey, just for the benefit of the audience, tell us which part of Australia you grew up in and where you find yourself now.
Yep. So born and raised in Mascot. So just right next to the airport here in Sydney, about 6-7 k's from the CBD. And been here all my life. And again, we'll touch on where I am now. I'm a little bit between mum and dad's house and one of my own places. But that's also in Mascot as well, so I can't get out of the area. That's
two hints. We got to take the hint, Ben. All right, tell us the living arrangement. Let's unpack it.
So I'm currently living between mum and dad's house and a property that I own about 500-600 meters away that I have on Airbnb. So sometimes I'm there, sometimes I'm not.
Okay.
Right, and you're doing that obviously because you can maximise the yield coming out of that when it does get let.
Absolutely, and also dabbling my feet in the independence field as well. So
yes,
it sounds like a very good way to dabble, though. Just you get a little alert on your phone to say that it's that the house.
Pack your bags, get out.
Tonight, Mum, can I have some pasta? Yeah, that sounds like
pasta and a bed.
Yes,
yeah.
That's what it is. Yeah, that's what it is, and I'm fortunate that my parents are really forthcoming with that and support me on everything that I do.
Any brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I've got an older brother and an older sister as well, but they've both left home.
Okay, so you're
the baby. Yep.
You're the baby, and
Mum will keep me as long as I'm happy to stay around.
Perfect.
That's the Italian way, right? Yeah. So, tell what sort of line of work are you in? Let's complete the picture.
I'm in project management for one of the banks. Not really in banking, but more the logistics side of things.
All right. Okay.
Beautiful. And before that, you were a personal trainer. Is that right? Have I read that correctly?
So I do a little bit of that on the side as a little bit of a side hustle. Have done that for the last, say, 5 years. Prior to working at one of the banks, I was a facility manager for a sport and rec centre.
Beautiful. And so obviously, because we're about to find out how many properties are in the portfolio.
Yeah, let's work after that. I think it's a good story.
Yeah.
Hey, your dad, you said your dad didn't talk about money, he just got the job done. So what shaped your influence? Because as our listeners will find out, you're very ambitious financially speaking. What shaped your views of that ambition and achieving what you've achieved at your age? What were some of the influences other than Dad just got it done?
I don't know. I mean, my old man's a conveyancer, so he's always had a head for property. And when I was working through high school, through university, I was doing full-time uni and full-time working as well. I was earning reasonable money when I was 19, 20, and Dad said, put that towards a deposit on a property. Then let that grow in 10 years and then sell it and put that down as a deposit on your forever home and then pay off your mortgage for the next 30. So that kind of was the Kickstarter and what got me going.
It's pretty good advice. So 7 years ago, that would have timed you about 2012. So it would have meant that if you still had that property, it would have ridden the boom quite nicely.
Well, yeah. So that was the kind of the beginning of proper employment, where I was starting to save for a deposit, which took me to the end of 2014, beginning of 2015, when I was able to purchase my first property.
Okay. So tell us about the thinking on that first property. We know you've got one in Mascot there, but where was the first property, and had you done any sort of strategic planning or thinking about that property? As we unpack your portfolio, we know it's obviously a high income producing portfolio. So tell us about how you got that first one and then proceed to the next one, to the next one, to the next one.
Yep. So the first one was about 6 months worth of looking. As I said, it was towards the back end of 2014.
Yep.
When I said to my old man, I've got a pretty decent deposit. Don't start charging me board. What do we do with it? So we went around on a Saturday, just the area, I suppose, within a 10K radius of Mascot, looking around properties, whether there was anything that we kind of liked. I didn't really know what I was looking for, being truthful. And I was fortunate enough to stumble upon a one-bedroom unit, one street back from the beach at Maroubra.
Nice.
And yeah, the very first auction that I ever went to, I didn't have the guts to bid. My brother-in-law had to bid on my behalf. And I won the auction, and that's really been pivotal and set me up tremendously.
So it was a one-bedroom unit. What sort of dollars were you paying at the time?
$460.
Okay.
Yep.
A lot of money back then, but it seems pretty cheap now.
Yeah, lots of money back then, and it was before the 10-20% deposit, so I was able to get in at 5%.
Yeah.
And I was just listening to going back listening to old podcasts this morning and listening to the discussion that you guys had about LMI, and definitely paying LMI was hands down worth it back in 2015. However, $4,000, I don't even remember what it was the best $4,000 I've ever spent.
Avoid it when you can, embrace it when you have to, right?
And I embrace it, and it's served me well.
Nice.
So you obviously got you're holding a large amount. You settle on the first one. You rack the surplus money that you haven't used because you've done a 95 borrow. Is that what you did? 95.
That's correct. Yeah.
Did you cap LMI as well?
Yep.
Okay. So effectively, you really only needed around sort of 6 to 8%.
For those playing along at home,
for those playing along at home.
LMI means capitalised into the loan.
Correct.
Yep.
And so that obviously meant that you've got still a fairly reasonable amount of money that's sitting now in offset, but potentially is going to be used for your next deposit on your next property.
Yeah, absolutely. And I, at the time, just bought the property. It was already rented. The tenant had been there for 14 years, so I didn't do anything. And I just thought, this is great. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So I just let it sit there, and it wasn't until about 2 years later when I said, can I do anything now that I assume this has gone up? We're well into the 2016, 2017 boom period now. Again, pretty green, not really. It's 23 by now. Not really knowing what to do with it. My first mistake was I went into the local branch and said, hey, this is the property that I have. I think it's worth a little bit more than what I paid for it. What can I do? And they've gone, we can give you absolutely 100%, but we're just going to take this property as security.
We can cross-collateralise it for you.
Exactly right. So I've gone, great, I don't need to pay anything, and I can go and buy another asset. And the bank said yes. So I went and did exactly that.
Mm-hmm. So which was where? Which suburb?
So that was actually bought from a family friend in Western Sydney in Liverpool.
Yep.
In hindsight, I probably wouldn't have purchased that property.
Yeah. Why?
Because it doesn't really tick those fundamentals, guys. Everything that you guys rattle on about twice a week, it does not tick those criteria.
So what are we talking about, though? Is it a unit house? What do we got?
Yeah, it's a red brick unit. So in terms of buying a unit, it's okay. It's spacious, two-bedder with double tandem parking. But the tenants
it's not land content, right?
Yeah, exactly. Only
well, it's not an apartment per se. It's a unit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not a disaster. It's definitely
no, it's not. And the tenants have been there still have been there since 1996. So I saw that as okay. These guys aren't going anywhere, and we just signed them on again to a new lease, and they really don't want to go anywhere. But yeah, in terms of would I buy that again, I probably wouldn't.
Yep.
Who's guiding the decisions at this point for you, Joey? Who are you following? Had you read some books? In terms of these decisions, was the advice still from your dad at this point?
It was. It was after? It must have been just after this one that I started to. My brother-in-law introduced me to Rich Dad Poor Dad, and from that I came across some Margaret Lomas books, and then I came across your book.
Mm-hmm.
So then, from not long after there onwards, I started to go, okay, there's more to it. There's a proper lifestyle that can be made out of this. Not in the next 5 to 10 years, but in the life of these loans. I could create something pretty special. And so, again, it was probably a slight error, that second property. And it hasn't been that bad for me. But, potentially money better spent elsewhere is the only thing that I'm thinking.
Do you still own that one?
I do.
In your portfolio properties, as we continue to unpack them, are they typically units, or did you graduate to sort of more house or even townhouses?
Yeah, no, I haven't graduated. I'm still in the unit game. For mine, it's come down to cash flow. I just can't afford, as much as I'd love to, a big house. The yield's just not there, and a portfolio the size of mine, I just can't sustain it.
It's actually interesting because your generation, you can get away with it being in Sydney, right? Because they've got a real appetite for that more medium density style of living. But it's typical. Ben and I have said this before. You're in your mid-20s, sort of the millennial generation. You grew up watching Friends and How I Met Your Mother and Seinfeld, and there are all these American shows that are typically around apartments, right? So it feels really normal. Whereas, you think about my generation, even my parents' generation, they watched The Sullivans and A Country Practice and help me out here, Ben.
Any of them.
Castle.
Yeah, it's all about land content, right? So it's a generational thing. But for you, being in Sydney, that's served you well. But if you had have maybe, lived in Perth or Adelaide or Brisbane to a certain extent with the same strategy, it wouldn't have served you as well.
It's exactly right. And I mean, like all of my friends now are starting to move out with their partners into 1 and 2 bedroom units, and they're going and renting the stock that I'm buying. So, I mean, I know the caliber of tenant because they're my peers.
Yeah, nice. Okay, so you bought Liverpool. You've got Maroubra in the bank. You've got Liverpool, 2 in the portfolio. That was pre sort of exposing yourself to some of the folks, including us. Thank you for reading the book in the industry. So post that, what happens? You get some information, and what happens to your mindset at that point?
The very first step was I went and saw a mortgage broker, who was kind of been pivotal to get me to the point that I am now. I've used him ever since, and absolutely get along like a house on fire. Investment savvy, deals only in property, and has just helped me tremendously. We sat down and had a chat, and he said, the way that I'm progressing, I just cannot continue to keep purchasing the assets or a similar asset to Liverpool, for argument's sake, because it's draining my cash flow. So he said, look, I know that you're after high growth properties in metropolitan areas, but you're probably going to need to balance this out to some degree. That's if you want to buy again, because I was hungry. I wanted to keep purchasing. He said, if you want to buy again, you got to find something that's not going to take a cent from you. And that's going to be the only way forward at this point. And again, I'm still progressing in my career. So I wasn't, I was on maybe a $45,000 or $50,000 salary at this time. So he said, you need to find something that's not going to drain all of your money because it's just not sustainable. So from there, I went into I don't even know how I found it or why I went there, but I did, on the Gold Coast, a little unit there. And from day one, it was putting $5 to $10 a week in my pocket. And that's after P&I, repayments, strata, all outgoings.
What sort of unit on the Gold Coast? Because when you say unit on the Gold Coast, there's
not what you're thinking. Yeah.
Big spectrum. There's the big high rise that you avoid, and then we know plenty of people who've bought on the highway, the beach side of the highway, and the little blocks that are getting really good yields, and they're next to a world class beach, right? So what
That's
did you
exactly. Get? Yeah, so I got a 3-story walk up.
Beautiful. Tick so far.
Orangey brick, no lifts, no pool, nothing like that. And it's about a 4 or 5 minute walk to SeaWorld.
Yeah, nice.
So in Southport there. So it's, in terms of, again, buying apartment or a unit, it ticked the boxes that you guys recommended. I definitely wasn't buying anything with a gym or a lift or a pool, sauna, or whatever else.
Yep.
It was purely a yield play to kind of balance out the loss in the portfolio that I was incurring.
So obviously, Maroubra by this stage is very much cash flow positive, given the time that you bought it. And so Liverpool was obviously cash flow negative.
Heavily.
But so tell me a bit more about that, because that does surprise me, being a little bit further out wide. Why it was heavily is because you did a 95 lend against it, even though the yield probably at the time was still probably $1 per thousand, which might have been sort of around that 4.5-5% yield. Was it purely the fact that you geared yourself to the higher LVR for that?
Yeah, it was 100%. So yeah, so I was leveraged up to the hills, and the yield wasn't even $1 per thousand. So
all right.
It was taking a little bit from me, so much so that Maroubra couldn't carry its weight.
So Maroubra's got a standard tenant. Liverpool's got a standard tenant. You buy on the Gold Coast in Southport.
Yep.
Standard tenant.
Long term or short term? Yep. Long term. Okay.
They'd been there long enough, about 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. Yep. How's that one gone?
It's maybe worth an extra $5,000. It's just been solid. It's just never been untenanted. It's always, I've had a changeover once. It was maybe 2 weeks of vacancy, and the rents have just gone up $5 every 6 months.
Yeah, and I think you'll find that there's probably been a bit of growth in there. I've just been revaluing the portfolio for our clients, and definitely noticed that the Gold Coast stuff, because that was bought circa 2015, 16.
No, this was late 2017 by now.
Oh, okay. Rightio. So it's probably on the back end of it. Yeah.
That's the lead up to the Commonwealth Games. There was a fair bit of activity.
Yeah, there was a fair bit of activity. All right. So we've got that one. So that's number 3. We've still got more to go. So next cab off the rank?
Next cab off the rank was an apartment in Rockdale. So about 12 Ks from Sydney CBD.
Yep.
This was late last year. There was blood on the streets, and no one really wanted to touch property. Yeah. So I saw that as a pretty good opportunity to potentially strike. By this point, I had started the role that I'm in now, seen a little bit of a pay increase, and just noticed that I was actually looking for my brother, trying to help him out, and then noticed that this property came up I ended up picking up for $383. When a unit directly the floor above me, identical floor plan, sold for $506 about maybe 12 or 18 months prior.
Wow. And what are we talking at that price point? One better?
One better, yep, that's correct.
Okay, so one better. How many in the block?
There must be less than 15, maybe 14.
Yep, okay. So one better, one car spot.
Yep, lock-up garage.
Lock-up garage, right. Old 70s brick, flat.
That's it. Yep. No tenant in this one, though. No tenant.
Oh, that's a departure from the plan for you.
Yes, it was. But I was able to negotiate early access. So I went in, spruced it up, and also to use the for sale photos as my for rent photos, and found a tenant that moved in the day after settlement.
Perfect.
Nice.
Excellent work. And so,
can I ask a question on lifting your eyes at that point, Joey? Because you're still young in your 20s, and yet you made a very mature decision to see an opportunity to get back into a market that was getting smacked with negative headlines.
Yeah.
How were you able to absorb that? How were you able to get up to 30,000 feet when most people were sort of at the 5,000 foot level, sort of really fearful?
I think to answer that question, it's because I was in the market. I was looking. I wanted to buy in Rockdale beforehand, but I was just priced out when people were paying $507,000 for this apartment. Back when agents were guiding 400 and it was selling for 500. So I physically went to those inspections and saw the competition that was there. And I've thought to myself, well, if there was this much competition, who's to say it's not going to be back and then some? If someone was willing to pay 506 for this upstairs, I'm happy to pay 383 for it one floor down.
Yeah. And what's interesting about that too, and you probably haven't put too much thinking into it because it's in your subconscious rather than your conscious thinking process. And that is, you've already bought by that stage 2, and this is your third. Three. Sorry, yeah, this is your 4th. So from that point of view, it's actually, when you walk a mile and see a mile, you don't even think about it, right? Once you've got to your 2nd or 3rd, it becomes an automatic, you lift your eyes up to 30,000. It's the one who can't start because, they're listening to the noise, as opposed to, in Joey's case, he's been able to say, I'm just on a program now, and this is my program, and I'm just going to find the best asset I can when I can afford to buy it.
Well, you raise a good teaching point for the listeners, Ben, that the hardest one by far is the first. You say knowledge is empowering, but only if you act on it.
Yep.
For those people who act on it, the second and subsequent decision is infinitely easier than the first one.
Yeah. So long as you don't cook yourself in the process.
As long as you don't
some people
do a bad
cook themselves. So, and that's what I was going to ask around the lending side. Obviously, 2017, a tough year for lending. How did you go about that? Were you trying to get in earlier but you couldn't? Had you tapped out on lending in 2015-16? Would you have gone earlier? Because I suspect you would have still had a little bit of equity if you wanted to go into LMI territory with the 3 you already had.
Yep. So there was a little bit of me wanting to do a little bit more, but my salary before I got my most recent job was restricting me. So the bank said no more. Yep. Then with a job change and a really, really, really clean books, so much so that my broker said, mate, I need to see some expenses because the bank's going to think you've got another account. You're not spending any money. Just do something.
Home, right? Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, so again, and at the same time, I was doing my personal training on the side, and I was using that as my kind of 7-day float. If I had worked separately to my PAYG job, then that was my money that I could go and spend. If I didn't, then I didn't have the money to spend as far as I was concerned.
Beautiful.
Joey, you're driven, right? And you're a millennial who doesn't want to spend his cash. You're looking for extra side hustles, all those sorts of things. What's driving the vision? What are you heading towards?
For me, it's that financial freedom at the end of the day. And I know it's not going to be tomorrow or the day after, but by the time all my loans are paid off, from your book, guys, you kind of set that. I don't know whether that goal is going to change or not, but you guys set that $100,000 a year passive income, and that's what I'm driving towards at this stage. And again, as I said, it might change in 5 to 10 years, but as it stands now, you guys have set me my target, and I'm working towards it.
Which is nice.
The reality is it's definitely going to be significantly higher than that, right, at 26. And, a portfolio, we haven't even finished off the portfolio yet, so I don't want to give away that number.
Well, no, it's around the drive, right? Because, we're looking at you on Zoom here, and the listeners are only getting the audio, but you're driven, right? There's something uniquely different about you. So I'm trying to work out what's causing you not to derail, because, sure, you want to be financially free, right? But so, most people do. And what is it that's causing you to not colour out of the lot more? Not even colour out of the lot. What's causing you to not be derailed?
I think just seeing that, I suppose, what the norm do gives you what the average results would be. And so if I just do what the norm does, then I'm going to have the same average result. So I feel that something else needs to happen in order to achieve something that people will one day sit back and go, how'd you do that?
Yep, swimming upstream, okay, against the tide. So
healthy dosage of delayed gratification.
Very much so. So we've got number 4. Number 5, where do we go shopping for number 5?
Number 5 was an opportunity that, again, my broker on the front foot came to me and said, Joey, I think there's a little bit of money that I can get you. He called me. So that's why I love the guy. He said, I think there's some money we can get you here. Is there anything that tickles your fancy? I said, not really, but nice to know. Let's pull some equity out if we can. which we did, which gave us the capacity to strike if and when needed. And then an opportunity came up about 500 to 600 metres away from my family home here in Mascot. It was a 2-bedroom, 1-bath lock-up garage in a block of 10. So in a street where it's the only unit block, they're all houses for a row of maybe 6 streets, and it's the only, I don't know how, maybe a brown paper bag back in the 70s. I don't know how they got a unit block up.
Yeah, good stuff.
So good scarcity there. And
under competition, or was it off market, or how did you get to it?
Yeah, so again, this was blood still in the streets. This was pre-election. The agent started at about 550 down to 520. There was a little bit of competition at the opens, but not really. So happens that my dad actually knows the owner of the agency that was selling it. So we went and played very innocently with the owner and said, can we just please get a deal done here?
Yeah.
Do us a favour. And we ended up picking it up for 485 when I knew there's nothing in the area that sells under 6.
Yeah.
So talk us through the playing innocent. How did the conversation go? You're not talking to an agent at this stage. You're talking direct to the vendor.
No, we're talking to the principal of the agency.
Sorry, Dad's connected to you.
Okay. Yeah.
And so
just so happens that this guy's his father migrated to Australia at the same time that my dad's dad did, and
instant bond. Yep.
There was that there, and he wanted to get the deal done for us.
So pre-election, when everyone was worried, as you say. So
we're looking at that property now in the background, are we?
Yes, yeah. Yeah, this is the one that's part-time Airbnb and part-time.
Yes.
Come on, talk us through that. So you bought this one in Mascot, and then all of a sudden you're going to deviate from the plan where everything else has been a long-term tenant. So talk us through that process.
For mine, it was, and again, I made the purchase knowing that the yield would still be solid at 5% if I got a long-term tenant. Mm-hmm. But for me, at the stage of my life that I'm in, I had a chat to my partner, and she was, should we try moving out? And we've gone, well, I've proposed this as a baby step, because I initially toyed around the idea of rent vesting with her, which she didn't love. She wants to own the walls that she lives in. So I said, look, this is a good stepping stone, a good dabble. If we can live together part-time here, then let's talk. So that's what I did. Again, it was a deceased estate, so the property did need just a cosmetic facelift.
Yeah.
So I picked up some, I'm not very handy, but I picked up the tools and a paintbrush and did my best.
Now, a lot of people are going to be thinking, well, wait a minute, you release the equity after number 4, and your mortgage broker proactively comes to you and says there's a little bit there. A little bit's 485,000. That's a little bit more than a little bit. So I'm assuming, whether I'm right or wrong, that at this point your girlfriend servicing her income helped you get onto this one.
Not at this stage. Not at this stage.
Okay.
Yeah. So this was pulling out a little bit of equity. We've then gone to another bank.
Yep.
Using my equity as a deposit, we've pulled out a loan for the difference. And we're able to execute this purchase.
And you're able to get over the line.
So you're not hitting any serviceability ceilings at this point. So
I'm hitting them. I'm hitting them every purchase.
So
But
your income's growing to a capacity that the extra that you're getting, plus the extra in the portfolio, plus the rental that you'll be buying is just getting you over the line. Is that right?
Just scraping by every time.
And the side hustle's also in the numbers, I suspect, as well. Yeah, everything.
Yep.
Yeah, to get that sort of lending, you're going to have to be putting everything on the table. Yep. Okay. That makes sense.
So surely that's it. Surely we've stopped at 5.
Fortunately for me. Unfortunately for the listeners that want to tune out.
Unfortunately for the story.
Yeah, there's just one more, which happens to be downstairs in the same block.
Okay. Yeah.
So this was an off-market opportunity that came up.
Yeah.
And I needed to strike pretty quickly, but by that 5th purchase, the broker said, there's no more here, Joey, for you. Tapped out. But yeah, at this stage, the Airbnb was going well for us, and my partner and I decided let's both apply for a loan together, and I could use her serviceability and she could leverage a little from me. And we were able to execute a purchase on my 6th and our 1st together.
Fantastic.
What's the percentage that you win on that? Is it 50-50?
50-50, yeah.
And in terms of global LVR, did you get into LMI territory on that one again, or did you tap
No.
out on your equity, or no, you've been okay?
Been okay.
Yeah.
So only mortgage insurance on Maroubra, and that's it. Everything else went 80%. Okay.
Yep.
And for the listeners' benefit, what we're talking about there is the lower that the LVR gets, the better it is also from a servicing point of view, because effectively each of the properties that Joey's owning is almost cash flow neutral, or as you heard from the Gold Coast one, cash flow positive. So the fact that you've been able to get a couple in Maroubra, by way of example, suggests that you're hustling well in terms of your market. It's a good market, right? You're better hustling there because it's so close to the city. It's got close to amenity. You've got the train there. You've got obviously the airport. All of those things going. So I think when we start to talk about, if we try to get every one of those at an 85, 90, 95% LMI territory, he would have tapped out earlier. So it would have been a lot harder for Joey to be able to get those done. But there you go. 6 properties, Bryce.
Well, the real story here, Ben, is LMI, embrace it, avoid it when you can, embrace it when you have to.
Yep.
If Joey was to not embrace it,
Yep.
and he adopted the avoid it policy, there's what it looks like if you had done that. That portfolio doesn't exist.
Oh, I agree. And the other point in terms of, because Joey, we've obviously only just met you, so we didn't know anything about the backstory. You started young. You're now 26 years of age. Time has been good to you. The market that you've bought in has been good to you. Certainly the Maroubra property, as you said, I think you paid, was it $485 for that one?
$460.
$460, my bad. What do you think that's worth now? What are the banks giving you on that one?
Pushing $700.
Yeah, so $700 for a one better in Maroubra there. Now, as Bryce was saying earlier, it's the one unit market in Australia that stacks up. And it's been stacking up because since the year 2000, Sydney builds more units than they do houses, whereas Melbourne didn't start doing that until 2010, and Brisbane started doing that in 2012. So there's effectively a full decade, which is effectively a generation of people who are building, as Joey was saying before about his target market is actually his mates and their girlfriends, because they're very used to it. That's the next step for them. Whereas here in Melbourne and in certain other parts, you can get into houses and you can flat share, and the density just simply isn't as what it is in the Sydney basin, right? So that's what we're talking about in terms of Sydney, a true international city where the apartment market performs very, very well compared to the other markets. Whereas if you're sampling units and houses in every other market in Australia, they just haven't done that. With Melbourne, probably the next one to go as we move towards that 8 million population over the course of 2030, 2040, 2050.
And Sydney has a geographical sort of perfect storm that conspires positively towards that, having the national park to the south, you've got the coast, you've got the Blue Mountains, and then you've got a harbour, and you go north of the harbour and there's another, the Hawkesbury River. So it's kind of just massively gridlocked with all of these people. It all conspires to make that market different. Hey, you hinted before, just on, is the shop shut? Is the queue in the rack? Is 6 enough?
So I think 6 is enough for now. The most recent one is I'm going to use, hopefully, as a stepping stone into the forever home with my partner. So I alluded to you earlier on before we went on air that the 5 that separate to the most recent purchase are there to, I suppose, fund retirement whenever that may be. And the most recent one we're going to use as a stepping stone into our forever home, or first home and then forever home.
Even better, someone hires the Airbnb upstairs, your owner's beneath you. Yeah. So there'll be no partying going on up there. There'll be no torch in the house when you got a problem with the noise? No, mate, it's my house. Get out. There'll be a bit of that going on as well.
What's your experience that you can share to the folks around short-term stays? In terms of bringing that into your portfolio. What obviously the upside is cash flow. What's been some of the blind spots that you didn't foresee when you started this that you're now a bit wiser about?
Look, the downsides I could foresee, and that's obviously the pillows being nicked or you're this, you're that. It's admin because I manage it myself rather than paying 20% to a company that manages it and only live 500 meters away or there. So it's very, very hands-on and time-consuming. That's got to be the number one reason as to why I would avoid it. But does the cash flow still stack up if you're paying 20% management fee? Yeah, it's each to their own. For me, it probably didn't.
Yeah. And Joey, we didn't round off in terms of the off-market that you got. You bought number 5 at 485. What did you get the off-market for? Was it in a similar condition? Did you have to pay?
No, this one was in much better condition, and obviously the market's improved since pre-election to now. So we paid $535 for this one, so a little bit more. But again, I got my other property valued earlier on in the year, and it came back at $600. So I knew that this was good buying. Upstairs is worth $600. This has to be worth somewhere thereabouts.
Yeah. Well, this is also a reminder for people who are thinking, Sydney market is definitely on the move, right? And everyone says you can't get anything under $600,000 in the Sydney market within 50 kilometres. That's not true. You just got to hustle. You just got to work the market. You got to find the opportunities, and you found it, right? So I think from that point of view, it's also a good message, to any aspiring person to get in. That the more you're in the know, the more work that you do, the more the opportunities present themselves. So well done to you.
Joe, tell us through the logistics. You get a little ping on your phone that says someone's renting your place. What does that look like? Do you lock up your stuff, the padlock on certain cupboards? How long does it take you to prepare to move your life out of something and let someone else rent your life for a bit?
Mate, we've got the process down pat now. Look, my partner, she's an absolute gem. She finishes work early, so often she'll go and make sure that everything's done while I'm off at work. But when we did the renovation, we purposefully put built-ins. Here's a funny story for you. I went and bought about 6 or 7 different types of window locks from Bunnings and tried my best to find one that I could drill into the track of the wardrobe. Yeah. And I found one eventually, returned the rest, bought 4 of them. So the wardrobes are completely locked up. And so that's where all our personal belongings are in the wardrobes. The rest is just, go for gold, guys. Do whatever you want.
There for your use. Yep.
What's a typical person? Someone who's just in and out of the airport and they need is it typically just an overnight thing?
Yeah, unfortunately, because it's, again, the most hands-on. But, that's what the people want. They want somewhere to stay the night arriving or the night before departing a flight. Very rarely, I'll get someone that probably doesn't really know the geography of Sydney very well and just goes, that's near enough to the airport, near enough to the CBD, near enough to the beach, and I'll stay for a week. Yeah, and that's golden for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of the overall yield on the 12 months or thereabouts, what sort of yield did you end up achieving through your Airbnb?
Yeah, it's somewhere around the 9% mark.
Yeah, very
so
good.
It's in a highly sought after area, but it's just very intensive. You got to be there often.
Hey, Joe, you know that you've taken on board a lot of the principles that we talk about. You've read the book. We know you're a podcast listener. And you hinted earlier about money smart. So what's the goal with the debt side of your portfolio? Is it a debt retirement play now? And if so, how are you managing your money? How are you going with adopting the money smarts?
So for mine, the end goal is, as you've said, I've got time on my side, being 26. Some of my loans will expire before I'm 50. The rest of them will be in my early 50s. So even if I did nothing else, I could retire out all of the loans at a pretty comfortable retirement age. Being as ambitious as I am, I'd like to drive that age down a little bit. Just the choice, the freedom. Knowing the type of person that I am, I'll still find something to keep me occupied. But that's the goal to drive that down. For mine, it's always been about building up the offset. So whatever spare available cash I've had, it's always sat in my offset. The only reason why I've drawn down from the offset is obviously it's my everyday account as well, but to put down deposits on the next property. Yep. But once the deposit's paid, it's working towards building up that offset again. And you can really see the difference looking back between, say, paying out a deposit, so a big sum of money leaves, looking at the interest payment that you're now going to pay versus when you had that deposit back in the offset account. It it's golden. And the advice that you gave, and it's what spurred me on. I had to ask before I had the broker. Is the first question I asked him when I went across to him. I said, "Can you please get me something with an offset? I've just heard about it, and like it sounds phenomenal. Just get me an offset. Get me an offset." And so the $390, whatever it is, admin fee. It's well worth it.
Which is fully tax deductible and more.
Exactly right.
Absolutely tax deductible against your investment loans. So I would have thought that'd be the case.
So you do a full 7-day float, paying yourself on a Thursday. Are you sticking in the rails, or have you got little Joey-isms to it?
No, so how my float works is that I will only spend, apart from essential rates, this, that, and the other. If a property needs something, that's fine. It will come from the offset account. But I'll only spend what I've earned side hustling. If I haven't earned, then there's nothing there to spend.
And don't forget that he does get a chance to go home to mum and get some beautiful Italian food, right? So
absolutely,
that is a blessing in disguise in terms of, for the average player out there, that's not necessarily going to be the case. But the average player out there doesn't have to have 6x26 either.
No.
Maybe 1 or 2x26 is possible for those people who also may have other commitments such as rent or putting their own dwelling over their head. So I think that's a good story. The other thing that's also been in Joey's favour is the fact that his first property was a capital growth play.
Yes.
And it did really, really well, which gave him a lot of that equity. Then he switched across to income plays, but the mascot properties have been opportunistic plays in the timing of the market, and they're also been capital growth plays. But effectively the Liverpool and certainly the Southport, those types of, and probably the Rockley to a degree is probably Rockdale, I should say, probably hasn't bounced as well as the other ones have. But I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that's the sort of strategy that we see playing out. You get a couple of good assets that can set you up, away you go. But if you can't, and you just need that cash flow to get you going, then you'll start with the yield properties as opposed to, having to chase down that capital growth property. Because everyone says, you're all about capital growth, guys. And I said, yeah, we like it. It's really good. It's the biggest game in town. But if you can't get to that game, you might as well start in the minor leagues, because you'll get to the major leagues at some point down the track, right? So I think that's part of the story as well.
But what you've said is exactly right, in that if that first purchase wasn't an opportunity, or if I said, I've got the capacity to go and buy something that's going to put $5 a week in my pocket at 21, I wouldn't be in the position that I am now. So if not that I'm in a position to give any advice, but if I wasn't able to secure that capital growth property from the get-go, it'd be a very different story to where I am.
It's just a slower story. That's all it is. It's just a slower story. You would still have a portfolio of properties, but it might only be 3 as opposed to the 6 that you've got. So it's still a tremendous story for someone who's 26, who in technical terms, you don't even have to worry about till you get to your 50s for the debt to be paid out. If you think about it, when you do your modelling, you'll find that by the age of, say, 45 to 48, the portfolio is well and truly paying for itself. And so even if you didn't pay the debt down, it'll still probably be generating $100,000 for you. So the fact that you're going to get your $100,000 plus pay the debt down is testament to what we're talking about here. So completely debt-free by your early 50s is absolutely plausible. So the $100,000 is going to be significantly lower than you're actually going to achieve in real terms. So it's going to be, $200,000 potentially for you guys.
Hey, Joey, question without notice. So embellish or tell as little or as much as you like. But what sort of debt is the portfolio carrying?
Just global LVR, that'll do.
Global LVR is right up to 80% now.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I think it's maybe 78. I've got my Excel spreadsheet. I need to whack in the most recent purchase. But it was somewhere between 78 and 80%.
Okay. Which is still pretty healthy.
And given you've done some minor, sort of alterations and a few other things on the properties, some of them you would have bought before the depreciation changes come in. So remembering when that global LVR gets down to around, and also you've got the high yielding at the Airbnb, at around sort of 65, you'll be cash flow neutral. Even probably 70, given how low interest rates are at the moment, that you'll probably be around that sort of 65, 70% LVR. You'll be cash flow neutral. So that is a tremendous story.
Does that feel about right, Joey?
Yep. And that's, what I'm hoping for.
Yeah.
Hey, Joe, I've really enjoyed chatting with you. At 26, the wisdom and the maturity you have is a lot of fun for us, right? But and my next question is around mindset, right? But it sounds like you started from a very good mind. You're telling yourself a very good story. But what's some of the observations of your own mindset that you've noticed changing from pre-portfolio, and then as you add another property to your portfolio, what are some of the things that you've noticed your thinking changing for the better?
For mine, it started with gee, I'm never going to be able to afford a house. And to now come, say, 5-6 years and going, well, now I'm confident that it is something that will be achievable, kind of puts me at ease, I suppose, because it was something that I would, again, who in their early 20s stresses out about never being able to afford a house, but genuine stress. So that's kind of put me at ease. On top of that, kind of as Ben said there, after the first one, it's kind of just, this is routine. I can tick the boxes and dot the I's, cross the T's for every purchase. And each one's becoming more and more easy. I'm not saying that it is easy, but as in the process started off very overwhelming. But as the portfolio has just been doing its thing and I've been getting on with life, it's just, become a lot easier for me. And it's less to kind of think and worry over.
So land tax is probably your only, challenge on the horizon in terms of 5 out of the 6 properties are in New South Wales. Have you been giving any thoughts to more borderless investing? Or given now that you're on a stepping stone towards your dream home, which I'm assuming is going to be somewhere in Mascot.
within walking distance.
I'm buttering up the neighbours. No.
What is your dream property? Is it to get into a house, or is your are you happy to just stay in sort of medium density living?
Absolutely not. It needs to be a house. I'm flexible on the location, and I don't care if it's a little run-down cottage. It's just want my own little parcel of land with no attached walls.
Fair enough.
Nice. No, very good. Well, as I said before, mate, it's been a real pleasure and a real treat to have a chat with you. I very much am in awe of people who will come on here and share their story and use it for the benefit of our community of people to try your story on for size and go, maybe that little bit works for me, or maybe I've been scared of LMI and he's done it, so I should embrace it, or, maybe I want to turn my house into an Airbnb for a week or a time. So there's just little bits or the whole story that people can draw inspiration from. So well done for being transparent, authentic and open and, sharing what's a really cool story, mate. Well done.
Thanks, guys.
And it's also another reminder that nothing comes without some sort of sacrifice or some sort of additional effort, right? The people who aren't swimming upstream, who are going downstream with everyone else, are just basically saying it's up to somebody else to fix my problem, or I'm not willing to make that effort. But you have, Joey, and so congratulations to you, mate, in terms of you've made the effort, continue on the journey, and we look forward to checking in with you maybe, in the future to see where you're at.
That'll be amazing, guys. Can't wait.
Terrific. Thanks again for coming on to the Summer Series, mate. Good luck. I don't think you need luck at all. Well done. You're just in control of your destiny. So well done. And thanks again for coming on the Property Couch.
Thanks so much for having me on, guys. Thank you.
Mate, how good was that?
How good. Just quality.
Quality.
Through and through. Just taking the lessons that he's learning, not just from our podcast, but from books and other podcasts, and his dad being conveyancer, and the property, osmosis, the learning that he's getting. He hasn't made a lot of mistakes.
No.
He's pretty much, every poster winner in a lot of cases, but got advice around, as he said, got his dad who's been in the property game for so long, got himself an investment savvy mortgage broker, organised his money, only spent basically his side hack money. So he's been able to sort of put that. So just quality.
Joey's he's the reason. He is humble, but that came across a lot, didn't it? Because he could have had a little bit of swagger about him.
Yep.
but he was humble the whole way. Hey, he's the reason we did the podcast, Ben. The exciting part about our community that we're building here is we're starting to see the fruit, because we've been around long enough for these people to have implemented it, acted, and then put these things into place. So I've got to tell you, it's so exciting. Just like the whole time I'm sitting back listening to that interview, I'm thinking, it's starting to bear fruit, mate.
There's hope for the millennial community, right?
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff we see out in the 24/7 news cycle is all about how hard it is and how difficult it is and how someone else needs to solve the problem for people. We've been banging on, if own it, just take ownership of it, get on with it yourself, don't listen to the noise, be one of the people who swim upstream when everyone else is swimming downstream, and get amongst it. So from my point of view, all credit to Joey for sharing his story to our community. Just wonderful.
Well said. So folks, there you go. That's another one of our wonderful summer series where we're showcasing people who have acted on it, and Joey has definitely acted on it. But hopefully our community's kicking back at a campsite, overseas somewhere, enjoying the festive season, which is really, really great.
With loved ones, family, friends.
Yeah, so wherever you are,
important other.
Hopefully you're enjoying this festive period. So Ben.
Until next week, Bryce, knowledge is empowering, but only if, like Joey, you act on it.
Exactly, folks. Enjoy the summer. We'll see you next week. Hey there, folks. Bryce Holdaway here. Before you go, if you're new to our community and only listen to maybe a handful of episodes, I thoroughly recommend that you go all the way back to episode number 1, where we unpack all of the foundations when it comes to property investing. Now, for those of you that might be a little bit time poor, I've got good news for you. We have a binge guide that you can download straight away, which summarises the first 20 episodes where Ben and I unpack the foundational pillars of the A, B, C, D, and so much more. And you can get that straight away. If you go to thepropertycouch.com.au/TPC20, you can download it and consume it whenever you want. It's completely free and available now. And for those of you, just a quick reminder that nothing we've spoken about today constitutes financial advice. We recommend that you reach out to your licensed professional advisor so that you can look at your unique circumstances before acting on any information. Now don't forget, go to thepropertycouch.com.au/TPC20 and get your binge guide today.